Hello my dear students, I hope you people are fine. So in our previous video we have completed with the bus, what is the purpose of using the bus, and we had seen the different types of bus, and we had also studied what are the different types of system bus, and a very little introductory part of memory we had completed. So in this video I would just like to revise certain concepts related to the bus, and then we will further proceed with the memory. So as we know that the motherboard makes all the components present on it to communicate with each other, like processor, RAM, okay, like input output devices, and then PCI slots, AGP slots, okay. We need certain connectivity in order to connect all those electronic components. Therefore, we are making use of the bus, the pathway that provides the data transfer between the different components of the computer. So therefore, the bus is acting as a mediator between your processor and the various external devices. Okay, so we have seen that bus is nothing but they are the collection of the parallel wires that would form, okay, pathway in order to carry the address, okay, in order to carry the control signals. It will carry the data plus the address plus the control signals. Okay, then we have also seen certain one important definition, that is the width of the bus. So actually the capacity of bus depends upon the number of the parallel wires present in it. So usually 16, 32, 64 or 128 number of wires will be present depending in the bus. So the more the number of wires are there, the more the bus can carry the data, wherein each wire can carry only one bit of a data at a time, isn't it? So that means if my bus capacity, if in the bus if I have 64 wires in it, then I'll be having 64 bits at a time I can transfer the data. Understood? So then we have seen the different types of bus, like an internal bus and the external bus. The internal bus actually connects the major components like processor, memory and the input, which is also called as the system bus. This is very, very important, like what is system bus, the definition, okay, or what is internal bus. So usually the north chipset will be carrying the higher components, isn't it? The working of the working or the data transfer between the higher components like CPU, RAM and the input output will be taken care by the north chipset, which we have already discussed. If at all, if any data transfer takes place between the higher components, then I may have to use the internal or the system bus. Why we call them as the higher components? Because CPU, RAM and the input output are the most extensively used for the processing purpose. So that is why there we are using the system bus. We have one more bus, that is the external bus, which is also called as an expansion bus, isn't it? So this expansion bus will it will take care of data transfer between the lower components of your computer systems, like peripheral device like hard disk, okay, then CD-ROM drives and the flash drives, in order to connect to the processor. Okay, so whenever usually these lower components data transfer will be taken care by the South Bridge chipset, as we know that, isn't it? So there, whatever the bus we are using to transfer the data between all the lower components of computer, then we are using the external bus. But we know that system bus is much faster because it is handling the higher components, okay, than comparatively to the expansion bus. Again, a very important question will be appearing from your exam point of view is, what is system bus, and explain the different types of system bus. Okay, now in this, what you have to explain is, you have to write what is the system bus definition, plus you have to explain about the data bus, address bus and the control bus. Okay, so you'll not be able to make out what content should be written for this question. That is the reason I am actually repeating for this. Okay, it is a very important question. What is system bus, and explain the different types of system bus. So therein I have seen the three kinds of buses under the system bus. The first one was the data bus. So data bus actually provides the pathway to transfer the data and instruction among the different components, mainly between the CPU and the memory. Okay, as we have studied in case of the system bus. Okay, so here again the speed of the bus means the greater the speed in the data transfer rate, so therefore the width of the bus also affects the speed of the computer. Here the data bus will make sure that all the data and the instructions are being transferred between the CPU and the memory. Okay, if at all if I have the 16 parallel wires in the bus, then at a time the data bus can carry 16 bits of data between the CPU and the that is the random access memory. Okay, moving on to the next one is the address bus. Then what is the use of this address bus? See, this bus actually connects the CPU and the RAM with a set of lines of wires similarly to that of the data bus itself. But here what happens? The width of this address bus is usually determined by the maximum number of memory location that the computer can have. How we are able to decide what is the width of the data bus? That is depending upon the number of parallel wires into it. Similarly, the width of the address bus is also being determined depending upon the number of memory location that the computer can have. If our computer system is having 16-bit address bus, if I am having, then I can have how many number of memory location? That means 2 raised to 16 bytes. When you calculate that 2 raised to 16 bytes, I'll be having around, I can address around 65,536 different memory location that my computer will be having, and I can transfer the rate of how much? 16 bit of a data at a time. I hope you are able to understand. That means address bus actually provides you to, it will help you to know that how many memory locations are there. Plus, whenever there is a data transfer between the CPU and the RAM, you need, whenever you are writing the data or reading the data from the random access memory to the CPU, you need to have an address, isn't it? You need to have the address of that particular memory location. Here I can show you in the slide. Okay, whenever the CPU wants to fetch the data from the RAM, it should know the address. So maybe here thousands of address memory locations, 65,000 memory locations will be there. In this, if at all my data is in the 5,000 memory location, how does the CPU will know? CPU will first make a request to the RAM through the address bus. Then the random access memory will actually send the address to the CPU. In the 5,000 location, the address has been there. Then what happens, the CPU will send the data through the data bus, and it will also send that memory location. So when the memory location 5000 will reach to the random access memory, it will understand that random access memory has to give the contents, has to provide those contents which are being there in the 500 location. Then the RAM will reply back through the data bus to the CPU. Okay, so whenever there is exchange of information between the CPU and the RAM, I need the data bus to actually transfer the data and instruction. I do also need the address bus in order to locate at which location my data is there into the memory. Plus this address bus also tells you how many number of memory locations that your computer system is having. I hope you are able to clearly understand. Suppose if my computer is of 32-bit address, if it was there, then 36-bit address bus if I am having, then how many I can have? 2 raised to 36 bytes means I can have, you need to calculate 2 raised to 36 how many memory locations I can have, or the whatever the memory locations are having, that I can also say that it is it has been around 64 GB of memory locations I'll be able to have. So all this is all about the address bus. Then moving on to the control bus. Control bus is actually used by the processor to send the signals to the different parts of computer in order to keep the different components to be coordinated. See here, whenever there is a data transfers, automatically the CPU will not communicate with the RAM. CPU will send through the control bus, one more bus will be here, through the control bus the CPU would send the signals to the RAM, so that the RAM will get to know that yes, right now the CPU wants to communicate with us. Then the CPU, okay, then the CPU through the address bus they will send the data, through the address bus it will fetch the memory location, and through the data bus it will transfer the data. See, before there is any communication, they are actually sending in a control signals in order to make these components say think that yes, right now I'll be receiving the data from the CPU. Similarly, whenever we are communicating with each other, isn't it, it's been intimated for you through the schedule, through the day, so and so date CS lecturer will be CS class would be there. So based upon the intimation we are able to conduct the class for you all. Similarly, in case of computer also, before there is a data transformation, we are sending the control signals to between the electronic components. Once the control signal is been sent, then we are sending the data through the data bus, and by fetching the address through the address bus. I hope you are able to clearly, now you are able to understand what is the usage of the bus, what are the different kinds of the bus we are using. Okay, moving on to the next, the very much important, that is the memory. So usually a computer memory refers to the electronic storing space. These are the electronic storing space for the instructions and the data, where the processor can access the data quickly. So computer memory allows to store the temporary data as well as the permanent data. We know that according to the temporary data we can have in terms of random access memory, then we can have the data storage permanently in the secondary storage devices, isn't it? Plus primary memory is also having compromises of two types, that is a random access memory and the read only memory, where read only memory will provide you to save the data permanently. What kind of data has been stored in the read only memory is nothing but the operating system. Then what kind of data is being stored in the random access memory means the currently programs that are being needed for the execution for the CPU, such kind of data are usually stored in the random access memory. Okay, whatever right now, see, when you on the computer system, maybe once the operating system has been loaded, you might have opened the Adobe Photoshop reader, Adobe Photoshop application you have opened. Then what at that this time what happens, you know, okay, this time this time that Adobe Photoshop will get loaded into the operating system, will get to know that you are being clicking on the Adobe Photoshop file which is there in your computer system. So that Adobe Photoshop application will get loaded into the RAM. Understood? It will get loaded into the RAM. That's one of the application software. Okay, then that application, maybe you may use it and you may close it, but that application from the RAM, it will not be erased until and unless you off the computer system completely. Once you off the computer systems completely, whatever the random access memory was holding the application software or the data or the programs, then the complete memory within the random access memory will be completely erased. Until and unless you off the contents, no matter right from morning till evening your computer system is on, whatever files you have accessed and whatever applications you have opened, everything will be there in the random access memory. That is why we call it, once you switch off your computer system, then the complete contents will be erased. That is why we call it as volatile in nature. That is the temporary storage, so that the contents will be completely erased when the system is turned off. Whereas in case of read-only memory, it stores the operating system. If at all, if you are having the Windows 10 as operating system, as and when the computer system is being on, actually your operating system will be there in the starting address of your hard drive, isn't it? Then through the help of the BIOS chip, okay, through the help of the BIOS chip, okay, this operating system will be will be permanently stored into the read-only memory through this BIOS chip. Actually, the operating system will be loaded from read-only memory to the random access memory. Okay, it will get loaded into random access memory. But no matter how many number of times you switch off your computer system, but the contents within the read-only memory will never be erased. That is why every now and then you on your computer system, you will be able to see the operating system into your computer system, because it has been present in read-only memory whose contents will never be erased. Hence, they are nothing but non-volatile in nature. I hope you are clearly understanding. But whether it is a RAM or whether it is a ROM, usually computer processor will have a very limited memory. Okay, hence it has to rely on the secondary storage devices, like in order to store the data and instructions. See, what all the internal memory the computer can have is internal hard disk. It will be having the RAM slots, and it will be having the ROM slots. Okay, so and then it will be having the cache memory. Okay, and as we have studied in first year, it will be having cache memory, plus we will be having the registers. That is registers it will be having, but registers are being they will be used internally within the CPU itself. So these are nothing but the internal memory. Okay, so now let us start with the internal memory. Internal memory actually includes the registers, cache memory, primary memory, which is again the RAM and the ROM, which is actually directly accessed by this processor for the processing purpose. So this internal memory is usually used for the temporary storage of data and instructions onto which the processor is currently working, as I have already explained this. Okay, internal memory, but it is very much fastest among all the other kinds of memory. The internal memories are quite fast in data transfer when you are comparing it to the secondary storage devices, like external hard disk or your CD disk and all. Comparatively to that, the data transfer between this CPU and your internal memory will be very fast, and this internal memory is very much expensive, and the computer is having the limited amount of internal memory. Okay, now let us see some of the features of the internal memory. That the first feature of internal memory, that obviously it is providing you the temporary storage, and this internal memory is having the limited storage capacity, plus it will provide you the faster access, and it is very high cost. So these are the basic features of the internal memory. Okay, then I'll be just explaining about this hierarchy. See here, this is how in the memory. Okay, these are what electronic storage locations where the data are being present in terms of zeros and ones. Okay, so this is your CPU. Internal memory of CPU will be stored in the register ALU, and this should be as a control unit. So data to memory, data from memory. What happens here? This is the data bus and address for reading or writing. Before it is read or write through the memory, it has to fetch the memory location, that is in the location 9th. This data is to be there, so that data has to be provided to the CPU. But before this, actually a control signal will be passed to the memory saying that the CPU wants to fetch the data from the that is memory. I hope you are able to understand. Now moving on to the next, this one, memory accessing levels of the processor. Here you can see here, firstly is the register access timing. Okay, you can see we are having registers, cache memory, okay, main memory or the RAM. All these comes under what? Internal memory. Hard disk and magnetic comes in the it comes in the external memory. Okay, or the external memory, or the you can also say for the secondary storage devices. Okay, we have the internal hard disk also. Okay, but according to the storage capacity, register is having very least storage capacity than the cache memory, because registers and the cache memory or the main memory, random access memory, they are holding the only the recent applications or the data or the instructions that the CPU needs for the processing. Okay, hence they are temporary storage. But as we go to the hard disk, obviously you are getting the internal hard disk will be there of every computer. Okay, then if you are using for the external hard disk which may come in terms of GB, right? Okay, so the magnetic tape, that means as you are moving on towards hierarchy level, the hard disk and magnetic tape are having the higher storage capacity when you are comparing to the internal memory of the computer. But what about the accessing speed? Okay, if I need to access the data from magnetic tape to my computer, the accessing speed is very quite longer when I compare it to the hard disk, and when I compare to the main memory, cache and the register. The most fastest memory that the CPU can use is the register. You can see here, because register are already inbuilt in the CPU. Obviously CPU will access the registers first. After register, then the fastest data transfer provides for the CPU for processing is the cache. Then it actually comes the RAM. That means cache memory is being present in between the CPU and the memory. I hope you are able to understand. That is why here the cache, and then the access timing provided less timings is about the RAM, then laterly hard disk and the magnetic tape. Students, I hope you are clearly understood. Okay, these concepts are very important from your exam point of view, so that's the reason I have just repeated with again with the different examples. In our next video we will be continuing with the next concepts. Take care of yourself, students. Keep studying. Okay, thank you.